Hello, students. My name is Miss Patrick, and I'm so glad that you are watching this video today so we can learn together. Um, this is going to be Unit 3, Module 1, so make sure you're in the correct area and make sure you're following along with your guided notes, whether it's split screen or you're writing them down. Make sure that you are following along. Okay, so let's get right into it. Today in this video, we are going to talk about protein structure and function. Okay, fun stuff, very fun. Okay, all right, so what are proteins? Proteins are one of the four macromolecules, or they can also be called organic molecules, that contain nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, and a oxygen elements. Okay, so you guys did kind of touch on proteins when you guys were going over the macromolecule unit, but I'm just going to be going into a little bit more detail. It's not going to be a long video. Moving on. Okay, so proteins are polymers of molecules called amino acids, all right? That's a big thing about proteins. They have molecules called amino acids, right? And what is an amino acid? An amino acid, they are compounds with an amino group, and our amino group is NH2, and a carboxyl group, which you will see as COOH, all right? So they will always have those two groups. They also have covalent bonds that are called peptide bonds that link these amino acids together to form something called a polypeptide. So it's like they took the polymers, okay, the polymers of molecules and the peptide bonds, and they put it together to form a polypeptide. Okay, so make sure you remember that. A protein, so if we're thinking about it overall, a protein is a structural molecule built from one or more polypeptides. Okay, so really think about that. A protein is a structural molecule built from one or more polypeptides. Okay, so here's just a little image, a little graphic. This is a polymer. All right, so these little colored circular figures that you see, those are our amino acids, all right? And basically a polypeptide is just a chain of those precisely ordered amino acids linked by these peptide bonds, okay? So a protein is made up of, like I said in the other slide, one or more polypeptides bonds, okay? So just remember that. There's a lot of P words: polymer, peptide, polypeptide bonds, polypeptides. On. Okay, so one of the key points that I want you guys to take away as we continue talking about proteins is some proteins control the rate of reactions. They can regulate cell processes. Some form cellular structures. Some have enzymatic functions, and we're really going to get into enzymes in our next module, because enzymes are proteins. Some transport substances into and out of cells to fight diseases. The key point is that I want you to know and I want you to recognize that proteins serve and they regulate a lot of functions in the body. So they are very important. Without proteins, we would not be able to live, okay? And when these proteins start to act up and start to go out of whack, our body kind of starts to go out of whack as well. And we're going to get into, some of those processes during this unit. So, very important factor about proteins is their structure and their function. Let's talk about just some similarities of proteins in general. All right. There are over 20 different amino acids found in nature, and these 20 different amino acids, you will see there's a lot of different names. I think we're just going to go over a few today, but 20 are found in nature. Okay, so all amino acids have identical regions where they are joined by those peptide bonds. Okay, so all of them have peptide bonds. This allows any amino acid to join to any other amino acid. Okay, so those are the 20 amino acids that are linked by those peptide bonds, and they always have that amino group, and they have that carboxyl group. All right, so some of the differences, what makes them different from one another? One of the big things about amino acids is that they are distinguished by a specific R group that they have. Some of these R groups can be acidic, some are basic, polar, non-polar, and some have very large ring structures. Okay, so all have peptide bonds, all have that amino group and that carboxyl group, and then what makes them different is that R group. Okay, so sorry, I'm just going to move me over here. So when we are talking about amino acids and peptide bonding, this is the general structure of how those amino acids looks. There's our amino group, and here is our carboxyl group. Okay, what makes them different, like I said before, is that R group. So here is an amino acid. This is alanine, and they have a methyl group, so that's what makes them different. And then there's serine, and that they also have a different R group right there. Okay, so when we put alanine and serine together, they are always going to be linked by a covalent bond, which in this case would be our peptide bond. Okay, they just took them, put them together to form a polypeptide because they're linked by a peptide bond. Right? If you kind of like this and you like structures, you like the amino group, carboxyl group, and you want to go into if you want to be a science major, a scientist, or a doctor, this is kind of like what you're going to be doing if you took an orgo class. So if you're into this kind of stuff, science is definitely for you, or a science major is definitely for you. But anyway, the key takeaway is that these amino acids get linked by peptide bonds. Okay, moving on. So they also have levels of organization. So there are 4 levels of structure, and this is just very brief. It's not something that that needs to be super memorized. Just know they have 4 levels of structure. Primary structure is sequence of those amino acids. All right, very basic. Amino acids are linked again by those peptide bonds, like we said. Then they form a polypeptide. So that's our primary structure. Next, we have our secondary structure. So that's going to have to do with the folding or the coiling of the polypeptide chain. There can be a helix structure, or they can be seen in a pleated sheet. Next is our tertiary structure, and that is just the 3D arrangement of the polypeptide chain. Okay, so one of these that you see on the right here is that interaction with water. Okay. And next is our quaternary structure. This is proteins with more than one chain, and they go into this category where they have a 4th level of structure. Okay, and these are described as different polypeptides are arranged in respect to each other. So in this unit, you guys are gonna read an article about hemoglobin, and it's very interesting. But these are different. This is an interaction with other polypeptides. So here's one here, there's one there, here's one here, and there's one there. Okay, so there's 4 different types. So that quaternary structure is going to be different polypeptides arranged against each other. Okay, and the key takeaway, we're about to end this video, but the key takeaway is, one of the other key takeaways is that shape or the structure of a protein determines its function. Okay, if you're going to get anything from this, please, 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 very important to remember, put a star on it by your notes, write it down again underneath, whatever you need to do, remember it. But the shape or the structure of the protein determines its function, okay? And then primarily that shape can also be determined by the amino acid sequence. But overall, that shape and that structure of the protein determines its function. Okay, that is all I have for you guys today. You can go back, or if you missed anything, next you can move on to our hemoglobin activity. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.